Hello, this is The Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So feedback is important. Feel free to reach out. Two ways to do that is through email and YouTube. And as I said, I'm working on advertisement to push out, talk about, promote my podcast. So whenever that gets sorted out and said and done, I'll give you all the information. All right, so I'm pretty much on all of the platforms, so it won't be hard to find me. So today, whenever you listen, topic of choice is all about lip singing. I'm going to wrap up the month of January with that. Here we go. All right, lip singing. So many different controversies that has came out with that. And I'm going to give my spin and my thoughts. And then I'll get into the facts. So, some say sometimes it's a means to an end. So, a really good example of that is the controversy that happened. If y'all don't know about it, and it's one of those things, I'm just going to delve right into it. All right, so when New Kids on the Block was when they first came on Arsenio Hall, they were all singing a cappella for the most part. And they were on that show to promote themselves and to showcase to the world their talent. However, when they came back to, I guess in itself, it was either the record producers or what have you, or Arsenio or the band, whoever was at hand, to come back to their stomping grounds, to their roots. This time, it was quite different. You see, the aspects of lip syncing, singing, whichever. Some say sinking, I say singing, to each his own. That issue came about. Now, why that issue came about is this way. So they were performing, and it was this whole thing where the tracks kept going while they were in transition of dancing or so forth. And so this spread it out like wildfires, because this was not too far along from when Milli Vanilli was in the headlines for doing the same thing, essentially. And so there was a lot of pushback on them, and it was a lot of things where, you craft yourself as being true performers, singers, and so forth. What's going on with this? And so it got to the point to where they had to plead out and reassure their fans and the public that they really do sing their own songs. And so they went through a lot of scrutiny. They were in the means of losing their height and fame and fortune and fanship over this. And so why was this taken so serious, and why isn't it taken that serious now? Well, then, as I mentioned about Milli Vanilli, it was still in people's consciousness about the aspects of being a bad faith person by not being genuine and out forefront about your singing, your ethics, and so forth. And so their excuse was this whole thing spread around. They were saying, well, that it's just to tone. And it was this whole thing where their producers were coming out and saying this too, where it was just they wanted to just get them out there. They didn't want to take the time to use the aspects of tone or in their voice. It takes a lot of time and prep work, so they just wanted to have them sing, and that was the reason. So, my take on this. Now, with the aspects of lip singing, it's really a very funny thing that goes on and that happens in the music industry. Is the aspects of image and quality and what you expect from a singer and a songwriter or a singer, right? Now, I think it's one of those things where if you have the talent and you can actually sing, put that forefront. I don't know. It's sort of one of those things to put all of this in perspective here. So, the means of technology, right? Now, technology is here to be useful and effective and streamline the lives of everybody, to make your life more easier. But at the same time, when you it's a balance effect. When you heavily rely on technology for every use of your life, that's when you get out of touch and out of the realm of yourself and what should be done. Now, a really good case in point of this too is backup singing. Now, there has been a lot of headlines and a lot of news about backup singers being actually on the forefront of a prominent singers out there. So, case in point, Beyonce is one of those. Jennifer Lopez is one of those. And the list goes on. And so, where did this go to in the aspects of the perspective of lip singing? Does the persona of the singer bring a lot of attention or a lot of drive between the sales of a certain artist? And I'm just, hey, I'm sorry, Swiftie fans. I'm just calling them for what it is. So, case in point is Taylor Swift. Now, it's one of those things too. Is two sides to this story, this issue, this image here. Now, it's one thing where and it's also one of those things where it's really much better to know yourself and know your range and just sticking to your range. But it's another thing is where is the talent actually there? So some years ago, when Taylor Swift was still considered a country artist, and she was on the waves of crossing over the pop, she did a duet with Stevie Nicks. Now, I will say that doing a duet with Stevie Nicks, you got to have some chops, and you got to have your own. Now, that worked well as far as harmony with Tom Petty, because even though, God rest his soul, Tom Petty, he could be, repetitive in the aspects of the way that he sung his songs and performed. There was a unique edge that was really made all that stuff work. And that really worked a lot when he did a duet with Stevie Nicks with Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Don't go tearing my heart around. And so there's one thing with that. And then, some could argue at the same time, well, Mary, maybe, his voice was tuned. Hey, maybe, but I'm just letting you know that there was a success with that. On the other hand, there's something to be said and determined about the aspects of performing live. Now, I can't quite remember the name of the show, but it was on Fox in the Houston area. I saw it last year or so, around this time, probably more in the springtime. But anyway, to make a long story short, that show was all about music and the music industry. And so one of the co-hosts, she said something that really was very resonant, and that's very relevant to the topic of choice in this case. She said that, I really don't consider myself to like a musician if I haven't heard them live. Now that speaks volumes. So that's saying that you don't really know if someone is actually a singer if you've never seen them live, if you never heard them live. And so the fact that there have been a lot of singers, particularly with Taylor Swift, that can't quite reach the mark of singing, are they really singers? All right, so there's also another thing too, where they say, well, especially when auto-tune came about, and I'll get back to my other point too. So when auto-tune came about, it was this whole thing, this can help with the aspects of so much time that's used and utilized with making sure the sound and the artist sounds as pristine, as perfect as possible. And so that was also misused and abused in itself. So what do you do with an artist who redefines the aspects of auto-tune and makes it work for him? He made his notoriety and his establishment from auto-tune. T-Pain. Now T-Pain, I think, is a really good example of the aspects of using auto-tune for the purposes of an art form, to say, auto-tune is something that you can create an image out of. It's not something that you should just use as a means to, phone it in when you're singing. And it's quite interesting because when the Masked Singer was first starting, my husband and I, watched it for the most part, but it's not what it used to be. And nobody, if y'all, I'm pretty sure you don't know how the ins and outs, how the reality show works. And then, you take everything with a grain of salt. It's a reality show. Is it really staged and so forth? But on the other hand, it's quite interesting that T-Pain, he was actually going on to the show to prove to the world and prove to the masses that he could actually sing. And then he told his story and the aspects about when it was known and so forth that, he started out being in the R&B industry, and it just couldn't meld together from what I remember. And so he decided to do let me find a different means to still stay in the music industry. So he figured out that auto-tune could amplify that. Now, the aspects of lip singing, some people, and it has been noted and taken account in the news and all that once a singer has reached a certain status, that, hey, you don't have to put so much work into everything all the time. Lip singing can be the focal point for that. But there's also a good point of view about lip singing. Sometimes the conditions do not work out to where you really need it. So case in point is when they weather is extreme. Now, it's really obvious, especially when the Macy Day parade is going on, that lip singing is, pretty much needed, because it's really hard on your vocal cords. You need to protect your voice in extreme conditions like that. And then, there is a controversy of, particularly with Beyonce, and the aspects of her lip singing with Obama's inauguration. And I would say maybe that was understandable because it was extremely cold, so I don't know. But with all that said, there's a lot of variance and nuance that should be thought with that. That I think to look at when it comes to the aspects of lip singing and the perception of the music industry and a singer or singers. So with this said, I'm going to get into the facts of everything about this. Here we go. All right, so pull it right up here. Okay. All right, so this is from Grunge, and this was originally written in 2023, July 31st to be exact, by Chandler Stark. And so the title of this story is, news story here, is 12 biggest lip sync scandals in music history. All right, so let's read. It says, for many adults, going to live music shows is one of their favorite activities. And most people would probably agree that when you go and see live performances, it's expected that the performer will actually be live. Anybody can listen to their favorite album at extreme loud volumes and for lots of listeners. The whole point of a live show is that it is authentic and they are actually singing. That's why the idea of lip singing or syncing is so controversial among many music enthusiasts. Several performers have seen their careers completely destroyed over lip sync allegations, and some have even been forced to quit the music business altogether. Now, it's quite interesting with the aspects of this too, with Milli Vanilli, which is they're going to get into. Why is it too that certain artists are picked and chosen to, be at the forefront of certain things? So, maybe because of, hold on, I'll be right back. All right, so maybe Milli Vanilli was the scapegoat, but of something to bring light to this that's going on in the music industry. I don't know. But another good example is Ashley Simpson when she was performing on SNL. Now, I remember seeing this, and I was 16, 17 at the time seeing this, and I saw it live, and it was like, wow. But it's one of those things where, some people have the theory that they purposely messed her track up in order for her to because she was talking a lot about the music industry, especially exploitation that goes on in the music industry with young people, and that maybe be sabotage. But, some people have said a lot of times when it comes to shows like SNL, it's just better to have to lip sync as far as the time management. But it's one of those things, again, when you're going to a concert, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. That's what the people are paid their money for. And then especially concert tickets, even you pay so much for it, so you should get your money's worth. You should get, the artist should have the respect to really showcase to their audience and to the fan base and the people who appreciate them, their talents. So what's going on there? And there is such a thing as industry plants, and that's a whole other thing, smoke and mirror thing, where it's unfortunate that goes on in the music industry. You know, you don't quite know if this is a genuine artist or it's just some artist that is just being pushed by certain music producers or a certain music company in order to be propagandist for a certain agenda. You know, there's that too. All right, so here you go. It says, that's why the idea of lip syncing is so controversial among many music enthusiasts. Several performers have seen their careers completely destroyed over lip sync allegations, and some have been forced to quit. It's not so much the lip syncing is that's so upsetting, but the lying and pretending that often surrounds it. Over the years, we've seen some pretty scandalous cases of lip syncing, and a few of them have gotten ugly. On the other hand, some people have been too quick to point fingers and make allegations only to learn a very expensive lesson about false allegations. Again, you know, when we're talking about from New Kids on the Block to Milli Vanilli, these are the biggest lip singing scandals in music history. And also there's another aspect of image and quality in the music industry. So I'm trying to think about I think her name was Martha Washington. I'm not quite certain. But it was a whole scandal that came out in the 90s where she was the actual person who was singing for Black Box or something. And the issue with that was that they hired a professional model to lip sync. And she was saying this whole thing where, you know, if in the music industry, a lot of times, if you don't look a certain way, they're going to push you aside. And then you're just either a back vocalist or, you know, you're just backing up. Or they craft this whole persona for something. But it's at the same time when that came out, it's like, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, you don't have to go along with these things. It's one of those things where, you know, seeing all different kinds of perspectives about that. I think that's quite interesting in itself, too, when it comes to the aspects of image, controlling the image quality and the aspects of if this is a persona or a singer or not. All right, so New Kids on the Block. So if you were a teenager anytime from the late 1980s to the early 1990s, there is basically no chance you haven't heard of the New Kids on the Block. The all-male singing group featured the likes of Donnie Wahlberg and Jordan Knight and was led by producer Maurice Starr. The band started when the guys were just teenagers, and their dance moves and singing voices made them extremely popular with similar-aged girls. In 1992, however, the New Kids on the Block were still at their peak, but things soon started to unravel. Unfortunately, lip-syncing allegations crept up at the same time. As reported by the Los Angeles Times, in February of 1992, the band's former music director, Gregory McPherson, accused them of lip-syncing their performances in now an infamous multi-million-dollar lawsuit. McPherson said that the lip-syncing dated back all the way to the 1980s and even claimed that the audio on their live concert video was completely fabricated. The group forcefully denied all of the allegation, but it was a public relations nightmare. Yet within 3 months, McPherson was recanting his accusation and had dropped his lawsuit via the Los Angeles Times. To this day, there is no evidence that the New Kids on the Block ever lip-synced anything, and the group filed a lawsuit against McPherson over his false public allegations. So the group recovered it and put out another album before splitting up, but it was an ugly, scandal nevertheless. Beyonce. Now, this is the aspects of what I was speaking earlier about the her singing at Obama's inauguration. Now, let's see what this gentleman has to say about it. So, considering she is one of the most that I don't agree, but this is from the perspective that she's very talented here. it's usually pretty hard to find fault in Beyonce's live performances. So, however, a minor scandal erupted in early 2013 over allegations that she had lip-synced the national anthem during former President Barack Obama's second inauguration. So, for her performance, Beyonce sang while the United States Marine Band played behind her. And most observers agree that it sounded fantastic. However, almost as soon as she was finished, questions started to emerge about the performance and the authenticity. Now, multiple news outlets openly wondered whether Beyonce was actually singing live or miming to a track. And the Marines seemed to conform to which the next day, though a spokesman about this. So Beyonce finally commented on the allegations. A few days later, she confirmed that they were correct and that she had been lip-singing during the performance. So her accuse was that she did not have the time to accurately rehearse with the Marines before the ceremony, and she did not feel comfortable potentially flubbing such an important song, such as an important bit. See, then this is where I would say, are you actually a performer? Now, I will push back on that, and I'll call crap on that. So, she knew when the time and date of everything is, and she knew she had multiple time to prepare for it if she was actually serious about it, or she could actually sing it to the best of her ability. So it's one of those things. That doesn't look that excuse really unravels, and it boils down to the fact of, do you actually have the talent to sing? What I mean, I don't know. That's my humble opinion here. All right, so Britney Spears. Britney Spears is one of the most successful pop singers in modern music history. Since the 1990s, Spears has been electrifying audiences around the world with her provocative pop hits. However, for much success as she has had on stage, she has also been dogged by rumors of lip-singing throughout much of her career. In recent years, some of the allegations have gotten louder. Fans shot videos from Instagram and have appeared to show times when she misses her cue and the vocals start without her. On her 2018 performance on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, was a widely this is when she was widely criticized of miming. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. And it turns out that just might be the case with this. So during the 2013 interview with Billboard, her manager, Larry Rudolph, confirmed that she uses a backtrack during her performances. Milli Vanilli. All right, so Milli Vanilli burst onto the scene in the late 80s and consisted of performers Rob Plattus and Fabrice Morvan. The contributions of good looks and catchy tunes quickly made them successful both in Europe and also in the U.S. Even won a Grammy in 1989 for the Best New Artist on the strength of their debut album, Girl, You Know It's True, which produced several huge hits such as the title track of Blame It on the Rain. Now, however, a year later, the jig was not really going on with that. Plattus and Morvan were outed as phonies, so the producer Frank Barron gave them up when he admitted it wasn't really them singing on the records or during performances. Apparently, Plattus and Morvan wanted to sing on the next record, but Barron did not like their actual voices and decided instead to blow the entire scam up. And you see the aspects. Creating a persona instead of actually, being forefront with the aspects of can this artist actually sing. All right, Mariah Carey. For decades, Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve has been one of the most popular TV shows for New Year's Eve celebrations. Every year, there are fabulous music guests performing all kinds of songs, and usually they've got rave reviews. So Mariah Carey would easily be one of the show's standout performers, but her appearance during the 2026 and 2027 shows was unfortunately mirrored by technical malfunctions. From the very beginning of her performance, it was pretty clear that something was amiss. So video upload to Twitter showed Carey appearing to be unable to hear the music she was supposed to be singing to and growing feasibly frustrated on stage. At one point, she completely stopped and even tried to sing along with her backup track, and instead tried to pump up the audience. So fans immediately tweeted jokes comparing her to Milli Vanilli, and the entire set can only be described as a total disaster. Luckily, Carey was a good sport about the incident and even tweeted her own response, completely with several emojis and explanatives. So one of those things too where there's a lot to be said too about when things aren't going right, you still try your best to perform. And it might have been one of those things, but I don't know. All right, so, and this is one of the cases where an artist was told to do something, and for a weird reason being punished for it, so to speak. So, Pavarotti. In one of the more unusual cases of lip singing, famous Italian singer Pavarotti found himself in some legal hot water in the early 1990s. So according to the LA Times, Pavarotti was performing in September of 1992 in Modena, Italy, and the BBC was broadcasting it live throughout the world on the radio station. Getting the rights to a concert like that isn't cheap. So the BBC was less than thrilled when the news emerged that Pavarotti's performance that night had been completely phoned in. So apparently the executives at the BBC had known ahead of time that it was going to be recording, but they did not raise any issues over it. They paid Pavarotti $40,000 for his appearance, but eventually sued him to recoup half of it for his part. All right, Vince Neil. So, according to this person, which I don't know, it's one of those things, yes and no with this, saying that Mötley Crüe is past their prime. They still tour and perform widely, but they are well down from the peak in which they were in their height of fame in the 80s and 90s. In case in point, Vince Neil. There is lip singing and miming accusations against the entire band. So in recent years, Neil has been widely lambasted. I'll be right back. And lambasted and being accused. Fans have been accusing him of not noting times when it seems as though you can hear Neil's voice even when the microphone isn't next to his face. All right, Katy Perry. It's one thing to get caught lip syncing, but it's quite another to be called out in real time on live TV and forced to start over again. Unfortunately for Katy Perry, she had live chat nightmare during a performance in the 2013 French NRJ Music Awards. And this happened when she was performing War in France. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, guys. The weather is something else, and y'all know what I'm talking about with the winter blast here. Now, Michael Jackson. Now, there's a lot of heat going out by him now, especially with the aspects of Epstein and all of that. And it's just nothing new, tarnishing his name and reputation and so forth. Now, what's alleged with Michael Jackson is this. All right, says, long known as one of the most electrifying entertainers in music, Michael Jackson was without a doubt one of the biggest stars of the 20th century. Few people can claim to have even a fraction of the success he had. So both as members of the Jackson 5 and as solo artists. Yet it turns out even the king of pop was not immune to allegations of lip singing. It's long been somewhat of an inside secret, but most people think that he lip synced his iconic performance at the 1983 Motown 25th anniversary special. So Jackson's performance, both as a member of the Jackson 5 and solo, he sang Billie Jean and immediately following his performance with his brothers. And it's here that the accusations of lip singing arrived. So according to the fan website 30 or 40, the reason that it was lip sync, it was because of the backing band. But it probably had more to do with his intensive dance routine during the set. Now that's one of those things too. It was out. Michael Jackson said it before, when he would perform, he would try to perform in a controlled dancing so it doesn't sound like he's out of breath, because, when you also get in that factor of that it's your persona to dance all the time, what kind of dancing are you doing? Are you having more controlled dancing to where you can contain yourself and still be able to sing, or is it just this fanatical kind of dancing to where it's kind of obvious that you're gonna need some lip singing when you're performing live? So that's one of those things too. All right, so Jennifer Hudson and Faith Hill. Now, when Jennifer Hudson and Faith Hill performed during the pregame show at the Super Bowl, most people who watched them thought they sounded amazing. So Hudson's performance of the Star Spangled Banner drew huge amounts of applause, and it showcased her incredible, powerful voice and strong range. However, for anyone who was watching closely, it also was pretty obvious she was singing to a backtrack. It's not that Hudson did a poor job miming, but when you have 10 different cameras filming you, it's in close definition, it's hard to hide. Now, within a few days, the producer responsible for the pregame show, Ricky Minor, had admitted it was a lip sync to the Associated Press via ABC. So according to Minor, he specifically wanted both Hill and Hudson to not sing live and instead use backtracks. This was not due to the lack of confidence in either performer, but rather is actually the norm for Super Bowl performances. Whitney Houston. For many people, the best version of the Star Spangled Banner before the Super Bowl belongs to Whitney Houston in her iconic rendition in 1991. So dressed in a bright white tracksuit with the matching headband and alongside a standing orchestra, Houston belted out one of the best sounding and most heartfelt performances of a national anthem in history, or at least it seemed that way. So for years, most people thought that Houston had sung the song live and canceled. Let me say it again. Had sung the song live and channeled the energy and intensity of the stadium through her voice. However, as her former music director, Ricky Minor, revealed, Ricky Minor again, okay. Hey, it's kind of funny how this relates itself. So why is it that he's at the forefront of both of these scandals for Hudson and Faith, and then again for Whitney Houston? Smell a little fish there? Maybe. Revealed in 2021 to today, Houston was actually... And then why reveal that long after something like this, long after the person has deceased, is that dead? She can't defend herself I mean, that's deplorable in itself to do that. So Houston was actually using a backtrack along with her live voice. In a somewhat convoluted answer, Minor said that both Houston and a backtrack were used, though it appears the audience mainly heard the track and not her live voice. The use of backtrack is somewhat detached from the prestige of her performance, but many fans still see it as legendary. According to Minor, the agreement they used for the song was special, and it was specifically timed to get the most out of her voice. So, lip sync or not, Houston's performance has a very special place in many people's heads and still will not be forgotten. Alright, so this reaches the end. So I would greatly like to know what you all think, and feel free to reach out to me. And I really appreciate it talking to you all about these different sort of aspects of image in January and the representation of image in different ways, especially when it comes to the music industry. Alright, so tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye for now.